Welcome to the Kissing Spine podcast. How nice of you to join. In this podcast, I discuss several topics around kissing spine, like what kissing spine is, the different medical treatments, the function of different body parts, functional and dysfunctional training techniques, saddle fit, and a whole lot more. All put together to help you support your horse with the kissing spine. I wish you a lot of fun listening, and if you like this podcast, make sure to become a subscriber so you won't miss any of my episodes. Hi guys, welcome to a new episode of the Kissing Spine podcast, and welcome to Villa Kula. So if you've never been on one of my podcasts, I have two cats and a dog running around the house. It's early in the morning, so they are awake, and it could be that they're going to be running around me while I'm doing this podcast. But I do this from my home, and I'm don't really going to lock up my animals just to have a chat with you. So I'm sorry if they're going to bother you, but they're in this house. So in this episode, I would like to talk about to surgery or not to surgery. And the thing with surgery is that there are a lot of opinions about it, and people have a lot of opinions about each other and what other people deciding to do and whether that is right or wrong. But the thing is, and that is factual, every kissing spine horse is different. So what could be a good option for one case does not necessarily mean it's a good option for the other case. So in this episode, I'm going to explain a little bit, not too deep, about what most kissing spine surgeries are about, and a little bit what the impact on the body is, things that I often see that go wrong, and that is mostly the fault of the owner. I'm sorry, but there are some stuff that you can avoid as a kissing spine horse owner after surgery. And then, of course, there is the ethical question: should we put our horses through all the discomfort of the surgery, or is it actually not worth it? And also with this, it really depends per case. So if you meet someone who did this surgery and you didn't, doesn't make you a better person or the other person a better person or a worse person. It really should be decided per case, per horse, what would be the right idea, okay? So in basics, there's nothing wrong or right with surgery. However, there's always a however. What I do see in practice is that surgery is performed on young horses that, for example, are being x-rayed to be sold. Turns out they have very mild kissing spines, and these are talented horses. And what I do see happen, that these horses are getting surgery just to get them on their competing career as quickly as possible, and just to make money. So before the kissing spine can or cannot become a problem, they're already getting surgery at a very young age, which is pretty invasive, just to make money, just for these horses. And you can also say that, to avoid the possibility that they're going to be uncomfortable. But, having such an invasive surgery at a very young age does have an impact on the body. So what do surgeons do with kissing spine surgery? Well, there's actually three types of things in basics what they're doing. One is bone shapes. What they do, like if you have the dorsals that are against each other, what they do is just scrape off or shave off, or whatever terminology you want to use, parts of these bones, so that the bones on the top are getting thinner, and therefore there is space created between the dorsals, so the bones are not touching anymore, they're not rubbing, and therefore the inflammation in that area could go away. Another thing is that when you go a little bit down, especially if there's been a lot of calcification going on, then what they do is actually snip the ligaments. So between the dorsals there are ligaments, and between the vertebrae there's ligaments. So it goes all the way down, because we're talking with kissing spines just about the dorsals, but actually when you look at my hands, these are vertebrae as well. That's part of the vertebrae. So if you have like that big lump, there's also ligaments between those. And what they do, they cut the ligaments in order to create movement again. So when there's a lot of calcification and this gets stuck, they just cut it open, so we get a little bit more movement in the spinal area. Because the more stiff the horse gets around the spine, the harder it's going to be to move, and the harder it's going to be to move through the body. So the horse will start to compensate and get issues in other places of the body. So, we also see a lot that the ligament snips and the bone shaves are combined. And the last thing that we see, but not as often, is that they just cut off a part of the dorsal and then one-on-one. So then you have no dorsal, then a dorsal, and then no dorsal, and then a dorsal. That's what they also do. I only recently found out that they do that, I think about 3 or 4 months ago. But I haven't seen it that often, to be honest. So these are, in general, very shortly explained, the types of surgeries that are out there. And the function of these surgeries are different. So it really depends what it is that you want to create. And what kind of issues your horse is running into. So for some, just having the ligament snips might be enough. For others, they do the full bone shave and stuff. So the thing with surgeries is that they often just cut open the top of the horse around the spine. And, well, if you've seen a horse move, you know that that is an area that moves when the horse is moving. So often after surgery, the horse needs to be on box rest for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, in some cases even 4 to 6 weeks. And although that sounds very terrible, being locked up in a prison for 6 weeks, there is a very important reason why this is the case. Because you don't want scar tissue to build up in that area where the surgeon has been cutting into your horse. Why not? Because scar tissue is very tough and it's not really elastic. So the more scar tissue you get, the harder it's going to be for your horse to move in an elastic way, and really, it's going to be limited in its movement because of the scar tissue, especially if the incision is fairly long and your horse has been running around like a lunatic. So I, for example, get a question very often. Okay, my horse just had surgery. I was recommended to do 4 weeks of box rest, but I feel that that's a little bit long. So is this really necessary? And then I'm like, okay, but your vet gave you that that suggestion or that after treatment for a reason. So why ask me whether that's a good idea? The fact is, whatever you ask, whoever rehab trainer or physical therapist, your vet gave that for a reason. Is your horse really climbing against the walls like a lunatic? Then he's moving. Then it's a very good question whether you should keep him in a stall. But a lot of people are afraid that this is going to happen. And then 95% figures out that actually the horse is quite okay being in its stall. Because what a lot of people forget is that the horse had very invasive surgery and that the body is recovering and healing itself and its wounds, and that recovering costs a lot of energy. So actually, and I only figured this out when I broke my arm and I had surgery on my arm. So I can show it for the ones who are watching this on YouTube, but like I broke off this part of my elbow, so that was around here. They had to cut it open and pull the bone down and then attach it again with a big pin. I have been exhausted for about 5 to 6 weeks after this surgery because my body was so busy recovering and healing the bone that I was so tired. I couldn't have run or do something wild or school. I couldn't do anything. I was just too tired. And I actually hear this a lot with people who had surgery or broke something. And so I think this is a more common thing. And the fact is that in practice, when I see horses who have had the kissing spine surgery, they don't really climb up the walls. They are just the bodies are too busy to recover. They're quite okay being in their stalls for some time. So I wouldn't be too afraid about it. So that being said, when should you perform or when should you consider doing the kissing spine surgery? A part of this is being discussed in the rehab strategy course, but let me take you a little bit more into that depth. For me, when it comes to deciding whether a horse is interesting for surgery, obviously the vet does this based on x-rays and based on how the horse is moving. I do it mostly based on how the horse is moving and responding to the first steps of rehab training. So for me, the first test that I would do is check how the horse is responding to mobility exercises. So can I create more mobility in the body by activating the hind leg and incentivizing the horse to think towards the contact with its mouth? That would be the first exercise that I would do. And how long does it take me for the horse to loosen up the body and really give that length in the top line and really start to stretch and move through the body? So how long does it take before I find a little bit more softness? I'm not asking for a perfectly loose horse. I'm asking for the horse to become a little bit softer and through the body. Does it take me like maximum 2 days? Then it's okay. Then I see that with training, there's a little bit of progress and I can get more if I continue the training. And also depending on on the age of the horse, like doing this with a horse that's 14 and it's been trained upside down its entire life and that doesn't really have faith and trust in humans, it might take a little bit longer to get there. A horse that's super tense and stuck and very unreactive and unresponsive, it might take a day or two to get there, and that's okay. Compared to a 5-year-old that is fairly young and still, has already some softness in the body, it might take me only 15 to 20 minutes to get there. But that doesn't mean that the 14-year-old should automatically be opted for surgery. It just means that you need to break a physical and psychological boundary to get to softness and relaxation, and you need that mental softness and relaxation to get to the physical softness and relaxation. So for me, the most important thing is that when I ask the horse to become a little bit more soft and a little bit through the body, is that eventually I do get an answer in the right direction. I do gain a little bit more softness. If I don't and the horse remains stuck for a week after doing some work for 5 days with the horse, I'm going to do a little look what I could do to help the horse. So where's the horse stuck? Is it stuck in the joints or does it have tight muscles? If it's stuck in the joints, I would start giving some supplements like glucosamine and maybe some magnesium. If it's stuck in the muscles, I would go more for the magnesium and creatine. And maybe I would add a little bit of painkillers to break the pain cycle. So it will help me figure out whether the horse is staying stuck out of pain or because it's simply physically incapable of giving more. So if you take away a little bit of the pain by adding some painkillers, you could see if you can break that cycle. So I would then work them again for another 5 days, not in a row, but in a week I would do 2 days, a day off, and then 3 days, and then a day off, and see how the horse develops over time. If that doesn't help, then I'm going to look for a little bit more invasive medical treatments to see what is going on. Honestly, 80% of the times, this is enough. So it's not like at age 3 you should be doing that, or at age 18 you should be doing that. No, you have to look at your horse specifically and see how they respond to the rehab training and then start to treat with medical options accordingly. So if painkillers and supplements do not help the horse, and maybe I will do it again for another week to see, how, because sometimes the painkillers and the whole cycle, it takes 1 or 2 weeks to make a change. So maybe I will keep on going for another week. It depends a little bit on the horse. But then if there's no real results after that, I'm going to look more down a medical route, like doing injections or doing mesotherapy or actually going for the surgery. And mostly the severity of the kissing spines would push me into a certain direction. So a horse with more severe kissing spine, I would more likely be going towards surgery, while horses with a little bit lighter kissing spine, I would either go for mesotherapy or doing a series of injections. And surgery for me personally would be the last choice. But if you have, for example, a 4-year-old with very serious kissing spines, then for that horse, it could be interesting to do the surgery relatively quickly, because you don't really want to continue that in their development when they grow and continue going. But you need to take into account that when these horses are growing, you can also, with the right training, help them grow out of it. But that can only happen until a certain extent. So if the kissing spine is already too serious, that's going to be a little bit harder. So, long story short, kissing spine surgery is not something that I take lightly, but I'm also not fiercely against it. But I do feel that before it's being applied or performed on a horse, we should take a little bit more critical and a little bit more analytical approach to the specific horse. Okay, is this horse going to get better with training? Would that be enough? If not, then we can decide to do something else. But cutting a horse open, especially around the spine, of course comes with risks. It comes with complications. It comes with the discomfort of the horse and a fair period of time where the body needs to heal. You need to take that into account. But obviously, there have been amazing results with horses that had the surgery and are now competing at high levels. So, it could be absolutely worth the investment and could be worth the trouble to do the surgery. I just wouldn't necessarily choose to do it on every horse if I feel that rehab could do the trick, just because it's really invasive and it does come with a fair amount of risks. So when it comes to the ethical aspect of performing surgery, for me, what I often hear, and this is more, and I don't like being really generalized, but there's 2 circuits where I do hear the same comments over and over again. One is the racing industry, and the second is the reining industry. 2 disciplines where horses are started up fairly young. Even at the age 2, these horses are already being prepped or even prepped for being ridden, or they're actually being ridden. So that is fairly young. In some cases with reiners, they are just broken and then turn down in the field to grow a little bit further. That is obviously different than prepping a 2.5 or 3-year-old for the futurities and just kicking them around for 4 or 5 days a week for 30 to 40 minute training sessions, because this happens. And then there's the racing industry. Obviously, we all know that is, well, also taking its toll on the body of the horse. Let me just phrase it like that. And not that there's people are bad for their horses. They just ask a lot of a young horse and accept that after the age of 6, 7, 8, these horses are, good for breeding, and that's pretty much where it ends. They've accepted that. Like, I know about it from back from the days that I was reining, that I would never ever recommend anyone to buy a 7 or 8-year-old reiner. I would always say buy a young one, because then you know that it's not completely destroyed. So and I miss the reining sport, really I do, but those were the things that I just were a little bit against me. So what I often hear in these worlds, like quarter horses, but also the racing thoroughbreds, are relatively sensitive of getting kissing spine, especially because they're trained young, very heavily, and not always with a tack that perfectly fits. And because of their conformation, the way that they're built and the way breeding has developed over the years just made them also more sensitive for kissing spines in a genetic way. So what I often hear in these circuits is like, oh, the horse is kissing spines, just put it down and buy another one. Or it's not worth it putting any money in. Or these bloodlines, these are very worth it. Just do the surgery and then just get back on and ride them. None of these people really seem to take into account that, there is another way. But these are often high-level trainers that tell people what to do, and people listen to them. And I hope that eventually we can go into a world where it's a little bit more accepted that training a horse takes time, and that there are different ways to, help a horse recover in a sustainable way. So, for example, if these horses were forbidden to be worked at such a young age, and that they at least need 1 or 2 years of solid foundation training before they are allowed to perform, compete, or race, they might be in a lot better shape when they come out of their careers. But that costs money. That's where a lot of problems obviously begin in the horse industry, is that it's a commercial one. So horses need to make money one way or another, and whether that's ethical or not. So, if you have a horse with a kissing spine and you want to make money out of that horse, that's obviously your choice, and you're totally free to do that. And that could influence whether you decide to do a surgery on a horse or not. So it would never be my choice to approach a horse like that, but that is up to me, and I'm a little bit of a softie, and I would look as a trainer at, what is most ethical towards the horse, not to my wallet. But that is not for everyone. That's a luxury that doesn't go for everyone. So whether to go for the surgery or not, for me, would be, does the horse really need it? And does the horse show more comfort after doing training exercises and mobility exercises? And do I see improvement in looseness and relaxation in the body? If yes, then I would hold back on the surgery for a bit of time. If you don't want to do that, if you just want your horse to, get better, do the surgery, and then move on the way you were going before, just to get rid of it very quickly, that is a choice. The only thing that I can say about that is you might miss out on a great opportunity to learn a lot about biomechanics and how the horse can move comfortably through the body. And the chances are that the way that you have been riding before were not that comfortable for your horse. So if you just buy off your horse's problem, you might also buy off the opportunity to learn some incredible stuff that really changed my life in so many ways. And for the better. I'm really such a better horse person now. So is that worth it to you? Is it worth it just to get rid of it as quickly as possible, just, by getting the surgery, getting over it, and then going back to what you were doing before? And you might even get disappointed because, some horses just don't go back to the same level as before. So if that is being promised to you, that you could be disappointed. Again, you might miss out on a great opportunity to learn some new stuff. If doing the surgery for you is a commercial thing, like, okay, I just want to get rid of this horse as quickly as possible, and it needs to be sound and safe. Just let's do the surgery so I can sell the horse. That's an option as well. And selling it with a kissing spine diagnosis, obviously the value of the horse has gone down. You also could miss out on a great opportunity to learn some new stuff. That would always be my point. Like, having a kissing spine horse can change the way you see things in so many ways, and that would improve the horse world in so many ways. But not everyone is ready for that. Not everyone is open for that. And if you're not, it doesn't make me a better person or you a bad person. It's just, if you're not ready for it, you're not ready for it. And no one can really force, that readiness upon you. But yeah, it's a valid reason if you want to sell a horse to do the surgery and just sell the horse. It is a reason. But if you would ask me as a trainer and a rehab trainer, what I would do is I would go through the steps and I would look at it very strategically. What does the horse need and how does the horse improve? So If you want to stay away from the surgery path for a while and you want to try this strategy, I can recommend you the Rehab Strategy course. You can find it on my website. You can find it on my YouTube channel in the comments. You can find it on my Facebook groups. So if you want to do the Rehab Strategy course, you can find the links and more information there or on my website, www.stjhorsetraining.nl. If you want to know more about the psychological impact of kissing spine on the horse, I have a free webinar on that, which you can also find on my website, my Facebook page, or on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for watching, and until the next Kissing Spine podcast. Have a good day. I would like to thank you again for listening to this podcast. If you think that this podcast is interesting to someone else, please share it on social media so others can find it too. This way we can create more awareness about what the options are with a kissing spine horse.